All right, we are live on Facebook. And just to allow folks to go ahead and start jumping in, let's take a few minutes and just reacquaint with everybody who's here. We'll start with the Brady Bunch order. So I'll go first, and then Alana, Nicole, and then Dr. Beck. So I'm Enrique. I'm the Associate Director of Texas Health Education Service. And right now I'm really excited to be here and come back for another week of what we're calling our courage sessions. We all need a little bit more courage right now, and we're here to help address any of your concerns or questions. So we're really excited to bring this platform to you, and I'm going to hand it over to Alana.
All right. Hi, I'm Alana Edwards, and I'm the Operations Coordinator at TMDSAS. About to enter my 4th cycle. Nicole.
All right. And hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Castillo. I'm the Senior Applicant Liaison for TMDSAS, and I'm excited to join you all today.
Hi, I'm Deborah Beck, and I've been working with the TMDSAS for about a month, but I'm formerly the Director of Advising at the University of North Texas for almost 20 years.
And what a month it's been, huh?
It has.
Well, I'm really thankful to you all for joining us today. I know we are in the midst of getting the application ready to go, and we had to yank you away to be able to get you to answer some of the questions that we're getting from applicants. Last week, we had such a positive response and just overwhelming response from a lot of people who had questions. So we're doing that again with you all here to address any questions about the TMDSAS application. So for those of you watching, please feel free to submit your questions in the box that we have here on the left in the description. And so first off, I want to go ahead and allow you all to talk about some of the things that we have in place right now in response to COVID-19 to assist applicants.
Sure. So although the application is still going to be opening on May 1st at 8 a.m., that's this Friday, everyone can begin their application at that time. But unless you're applying to a program that has an expedited deadline, for instance, early programs or JAMP, then your application will not be transmitted until June 1st. And I think that's probably the biggest difference.
Could you talk about the transmitting later this application cycle?
Yeah, so unless you are applying to JAMP or Early Decision Program, it won't be transmitted until June 1st. So June 1st is when we'll start sending those to the medical schools. Okay,
thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a few questions that some folks have submitted prior to the launch of this live Q&A, and so I'm going to read off a couple of those. Let me get this to fit the screen a little better. Let's see. First question. The TMDSAS member institutions understand that scores will be available later in the cycle and will evaluate applications as scores are submitted to TMDSAS. That's a direct quote from our newsroom. I have a question regarding this statement. Does this mean you can take the MCAT and send in your scores after the MCAT examination opens back up?
Yeah, so you have, you'll submit your application when it's complete, and you will update TMDSAS with your MCAT scores as those are released. TMDSAS in turn will update the schools, and it's a pretty short turnaround there. So as soon as we receive those scores, the schools will also have access to them.
So just to add to that point, I know we say this 1,000,001 times, but you do not need to have an MCAT or DAT score in order to submit your application for TMDSAS, and you do not need to have your letters of evaluation ready at the time of submitting your application to TMDSAS. We definitely urge you all to submit your applications early in the cycle, since you only need to enter, your information, your essays, your activities into the application. All of that's ready to go right now. Even if MCATs are postponed until September, you have the information that you need right now. So do make sure that you take the time, especially with the delay of transmitting applications to the schools until June. You want to take advantage of the opportunity to go ahead and get your application submitted. And I also want to reiterate that you cannot submit your application until your spring grades are available. So if you submit your application without your spring grades, you're going to have a bad time. So make sure you wait until those grades come in before you submit. But do work on getting your application in. Again, you do not need your MCAT, DAT scores, or your letters of evaluation in order to submit.
And just a last follow-up on that. If your MCAT score does change, that's something that we can easily change after you have submitted your application. So if you end up taking another MCAT date, you'll just have to let us know and we can add that to your application. Or if a future MCAT date changes, just reach out to us and we're happy to get that adjusted.
Yeah, and that was actually a point that was really heavily discussed this past weekend in our online communities, particularly with our non-traditional students. For those of whom have an older MCAT and meaning that it's still relevant within the past 5 years, but they wanted to retake it for a higher score, they're concerned that submitting their application with a lower MCAT score might hurt their application. But when you submit the MCAT section of the application or the DAT section, you're actually entering not just all the tests that you've already taken, but also all the ones that you have planned. And so the schools will be able to see, yeah, this MCAT is a, I don't know, 480, and they're planning to retake it. So they see that you're not just, giving up and resting on your laurels for a 480. They see that you're still working to improve. So you are definitely in a situation to submit early.
Yeah.
All right, we have started to get some questions in our feed here. So we have the first one. Hello, thank you for the time to answer questions today. When filling out the activity section, will we have the 300 character description in addition to slots available to write the location, data, etc.? Or do we have to put in those bits of information in the description itself?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about this. Yeah, so entering activities. You will have the descriptor box as its own character count. So what you include in the prior information won't take away. So meaning like the date, the activity name will not take away from your ability to utilize those 300 characters in the description.
All right. And I think that answers the second part of her question, which was about entering academic honors. Can they be bundled in the same activity box, or should they enter them as different times and places? And Deb, I think you might be the one that is better equipped to answer that as a former advisor. So this student has several academic awards and honors that they received, and they're asking if they should bundle them up together or if they should separate them out.
That may depend on how many there are, for one thing, and the significance of each one. I usually suggested to people that they list them individually, and if you can give a little bit about what they are, and be careful about using acronyms because everyone doesn't know what maybe NHS is or AED or some of those acronyms.
Yeah, I think especially for a lot of the honors groups, they tend to be Greek. And so, right. Yeah, it's difficult to decipher what those are. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think, because I can't get enough of hearing my own voice, just to add to that, I want to say that the activity section, you have directions there, and you don't want to enter things in multiple locations unless they are healthcare and employment activities. So ultimately, it just comes down to you and your own decision. Take some time to reflect, and you're the one that's making the decision. You're the one that really understands those activities. So just think, if during your interview somebody asks why you put something in that spot and you're able to defend it, then you are very welcome to enter it in whichever spot you'd like. You're the one that knows those activities and is able to expand on them. All right, next question. All right. So blessed y'all can make y'all. So blessed for you all to do this. What's a major mistake that I can make when talking about my activities? So what are major mistakes that happen when people talk about their activities? I think we've hit a couple with abbreviating too much. I think some of the things I've heard from the schools is, particularly with healthcare activities, they want to hear the name of the doctors that you are shadowing, that you're engaging with. Some other mistakes I think could be overinflating the amount of hours. I know, if you do Habitat for Humanity in June, because that's your 1 month that you have off between school, and you've done it over the past 5 years, you've not done 5 years of Habitat for Humanity. You've done 5, say, weeks over the course of 5 months. So when you enter that, that might be an example of something that you enter on an individual basis. So it doesn't aggregate into 5 years worth, when in fact it was just 5 weeks worth over 5 years. So a follow-up question to that: what is the one thing I can say likewise in my personal statement that will be a major mistake and give the schools the wrong impression?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard to pinpoint, one thing. And, from TMDSAS side, we want to support applicants through this, but also, help them to understand that this is, they're putting together this profile for the schools, and so they want to make sure that these more personal aspects of the application, like these activities and essays, really reflect what the applicant wants to. So, I would say they want to be sure to talk about how, their experiences fit into, the career that they're choosing, and be sure to, not just focus on maybe one particular thing or one particular activity, but really show overall how are they using all of these experiences that they've had that support, their readiness to join professional school.
Awesome.
I might jump in here. Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, a resource we have for them to use that is in one of our issues of Apply magazine that's all about the personal statement. So just to, put a plug in for that's something that they can take and, read and kind of digest on their own and hopefully get some helpful tips from there. But please, Dr. Beck.
I was just going to say that also be careful about the future activities part, and that if you say you're going to shadow 150 hours in the spring or summer or fall, make sure you stick to that or you amend it. And again, that may go back to overinflation, or your plans may just change. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of plans have changed this summer, I know, with the pandemic. So that can happen. There's nothing wrong with changing it, but just update.
And I will say in regards to that, so TMDSAS does not allow you to update your future activity.
Oh, oops.
But the schools do, from what we've heard, they do obviously understand that change is likely to happen, something that you've planned on. But what they want to know is that you've actually attempted to do something. So you didn't just think, oh, this would be a nice idea for me to do, and you didn't take any steps towards that. It's very likely that in your interviews, they may be asking about your personal or your future activities and what did you do? What did you end up not doing? To be able to say, well, I was working towards this goal and this is how I did that, even though I may not have accomplished that full goal. Being able to speak towards the steps you've taken to get there is important.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Alana.
Yeah.
And then also, when you come to the interviews, it's definitely a place where you can show up and say, in my application, here were my planned activities, but here's what actually happened. That's definitely your opportunity to do so. Awesome. We're just running right through these. So next question. Should we still apply ASAP to allow for time to process applications before the June 1st transmission?
Oh, I love this question. So there is not a specific reason for which you should apply within like the first 2 days of your application or the first 2 days of the application opening. We hear it all the time. I want to apply on May 1st. I want to apply on May 2nd or May 3rd. There's no reason to really rush and get that application in at that point in time. If you think about it, the schools are still wrapping up entry year 2020. They're still finalizing their class that's going to start in the next few months. They're not going to be racing to, even if we were transmitting them in May, they are not racing to start reading the first application that's submitted, especially given the fact that the applications are now going to be transmitted in June. Take your time and have a complete and accurate application. There are so many things, like I was just saying to Dr. Beck, there are so many things in the application that we don't change. Placeholders and essays will not be corrected. Any a mistype on the amount of hours you spent on your activities, we won't fix that. So taking the time to make sure that your application is accurate and complete is one of the, in my opinion, more important things than really rushing and getting your application in the first few weeks of the cycle. Of course, you still want to get it in a timely manner, but that might mean June and July rather than the first couple weeks of May.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to kind of echo what Alana's saying is take the time that you need, take the time to put forth the best application that is the best reflection of you. But at a minimum, we do encourage applicants to spend at least 2 full weeks working on the application, taking it bit by bit, taking your time, really giving themselves the opportunity to review. And a great way to do that is to print and review the application prior to submitting it. So if you look at it in print, you are going to perceive things differently. You can even get another set of eyes on it, just to help catch any of those mistakes that you might otherwise miss.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question. Will I be receiving secondaries although my application is still missing my MCAT score? Should I be writing secondaries while I'm studying for the MCAT? We are currently meeting regularly with all of our participating member institutions, and they are aware that transmissions will be coming out a little bit later this year, and the additional month that the application cycle has been extended will probably affect the release of the secondary applications. That is something that we are currently addressing, and as soon as we have an update on that, we'll post it on our COVID-19 newsroom page. However, not all of the schools have secondaries that you have to wait to receive an invitation. And if you go to the TMDSAS website, to the secondaries application section, you can see which schools have secondary applications and how you can actually receive or access that secondary application. So it'll tell you if you have to wait for an invitation for a secondary or if you can go ahead and get started on that. All right, next question. I currently volunteer as a coach for Special Olympics. This has clear leadership and community service aspects. Can I include this activity as 2 categories if I have completely different description for the title and activity? Will my application be penalized if I do this, but is not allowed? I think we just addressed that question, and you just acknowledged that we addressed that question. Yeah, if you can defend it, the guidance from the schools is that each activity can only be entered in 1 section, except for any activity that is both employment and healthcare activity. And so an example of that would be scribe would have both employment and healthcare activity, or an EMT would be healthcare and employment as well. But again, you're the one that ultimately makes that decision.
Yeah, I will just jump in to say that the activities is completing the activities section is challenging, right? Trying to figure out what is the best place for specific activities to go. And it really is an opportunity to show the schools your critical thinking skills. to show them, you know, I've really thought through where I'm going to put this activity into what section. I can do this. I can put it into a specific section and I can defend that place that I put it. And even talking to your advisor, that's a really good resource for you to help sort of talk through these things and what category that activity should be put in. But it really is a test of your critical thinking skills, you know, having to determine what section does this activity fit into best is a really good way to show the schools that you have those skills and that you can make that decision.
Excellent. Should we add shadowing to future activities at all?
I mean, if the plan is there, you know, if you intend to do it, if it doesn't work out, you know, you have that addendum to your application and you can talk about this during interviews. But I think if there's something that you, but any time in the cycle, you know, if there's some opportunity comes up and maybe it's not something that you indicated, but it is something that then occurs, again, you know, either way you can speak to that change in interviews with the schools.
And I think kind of talking beyond the application, and back me up or correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, but right now is a critical time in terms of being creative with how you're doing your activities. Perhaps for the foreseeable future, shadowing doesn't look the way it did a couple of months ago, but perhaps shadowing now looks like being a scribe via telemedicine, or providing translation services for patients who may speak languages other than English. And all of those opportunities currently exist in different locations throughout the United States. And, you know, we clearly know that a lot of people need help right now. And there are lots of different ways that people can engage with that. What the schools ultimately want to see is that you are engaged with the process, that you're engaged with your mission of becoming a healthcare provider, and anything that you're doing to make that goal a reality is really something that's going to promote your application a little bit further, rather than just saying, you know, I plan to do shadowing, but it fell through, so I didn't do anything. Always be thinking about how you can do better. All right. Next question. For academic fresh start, I have been told by the registrar's office they will have to write a letter as if it will not be noted on my transcript. How does that letter need to be submitted?
So that letter can be sent directly from the registrar via email to us at info@tmdsas.com, or they can mail it to either of our addresses listed on the website. But it does have to be a letter from the registrar.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. Are we allowed to change letter recommenders or evaluators after submission?
Yes, this is a great question, something we're really excited about this year. Applicants will actually, so the answer has always been yes. In the past, we've had to be the ones to make that change for the applicants. But this year, applicants will actually be able to change their evaluators themselves post-submission. So as long as a letter has not been received from that evaluator, you will be able to log in and change that evaluator after submission.
Great. Here's a follow-up question to activities. With the 300 character limit for experiences, how do we show and not tell for unique experiences such as volunteering with a local nonprofit? Should we focus on what we got out of it instead treat it like a resume with our roles and responsibilities? Dr. Beck, I think you might be the one to answer this one.
Well, it would be great to hear some of both, or if you can work in your role there, what you've done with some of what you've learned and experienced, and how that's influenced your life. I know it's not many characters, but you probably need to do both.
Yeah. And I also want to remind applicants that we have 3 activities that could be selected as your meaningful activities, which allow you more space to talk about them if needed. I believe it's 500 characters additional.
So I am confirming that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Great.
500.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that would essentially give you 800 characters to talk about one activity if necessary. All right, so next question. So to clarify, research can only be entered in once, even if it was also employment.
That is correct. That's based on the guidance from what the schools have given us. Though, you know, there's no reason why you can't mention in the description the fact that it was also employment.
All right, and it looks like somebody's having some issues with hearing or seeing. I'm not able to see that same issue. We do have this live feed going into the Health Education Service and TMDSAS newsroom. So I'm sharing the link on there. If you do have any issues on Facebook with seeing this live feed, clearly we're all still working remotely right now. And so we're relying on our home Wi-Fi's. So if you do have some issues, my apologies, but this video will be posted on the Texas Health Education Service and the TMDSAS Facebook pages for future reference. So if you do have any issues right now with seeing or hearing anything, we'll make sure that that's corrected in the recording that's left over. All right, next question. For college funding sources, when we report the percentage of funding received from each source, is this an estimate or does it have to be an exact percentage?
I think your best estimate will do.
I agree. Simple. Let me make sure this person's question is answered about issues with seeing. So it looks like we are pretty much caught up with some of the questions that we're having on our chat here. Again, if you do have any questions, we've got the team here till 2. Ask away anything and everything that you want to know about the TMDSAS application. We are here to help. All right, and the call has been answered. So next question. Are the 500 characters in addition to the 300, 800 total? Just wanted to confirm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
confirm.
If you choose that as a meaningful activity, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next question. How does Casper work? Is the test linked to TMDSAS? When do we do these if needed in the cycle? So those are 3 questions. Let's take the first one. How does Casper work? So Casper is a situational assessment test that some of the schools have been using recently. It's really an assessment that puts you in a different scenario that addresses how you would react to different scenarios. It's video delivered, and you're watching something, and then it gives you a certain amount of time to set up a response to it. And you're doing that over the course. We have some resources on our secondary applications and Casper page of the TMDSAS website if you are curious about how Casper works. Not all of the TMDSAS schools currently use Casper, but there are enough of them where we need to make sure that you know which schools are using them. And let me go ahead and pull up so I can recite exactly which schools are using Casper. But essentially what this test does is it gives the schools an additional perspective as to who you are as an applicant. It's not meant to be something to, well, actually, it's actually a tool that the admissions committees use in different ways. So we actually have a podcast episode with Dr. Judy Ann Kellaway from the Long School of Medicine, where she talks about how schools use Casper. She talks about how Long School of Medicine uses Casper, and also addresses how some schools may use Casper to screen applicants into an interview or screen them out of an interview, or could be used in addition to different things that they're looking at in the application. So there are a lot of different ways that Casper is used. And as I mentioned, we have several schools at TMDSAS. We have Texas A&M College of Medicine, Texas Tech University School of Medicine in Lubbock, Texas Tech University Paulo Foster School of Medicine, UT Medical Branch of Galveston, the Lung School of Medicine, and Sam Houston State University College of Osteopathic Medicine all use Casper. The timeline for Casper, they do have their own timing for setting up a test, just like the MCAT or the DAT would. So you have to go and register on their website, and you indicate to which schools you'd like to submit your Casper scores. So you want to make sure that the schools that you apply to through TMDSAS are the same ones you're sending your Casper scores to. And you definitely want to do that probably right after you finish your secondary applications, so that by the time your secondary applications and your primary applications processed and reviewed by the schools, they also have your Casper score. So yeah, take a look at some of the resources that we have on the website. I'm going to go ahead and link them in response here. And I think that'll address a lot of the questions that you have about Casper. All right, moving on to our next question. We're at the halfway mark now. What does it mean in the handbook where it says not to send transcripts until they are requested?
Right, so that means that TMDSAS will reach out to you when it's time to submit those transcripts, and that will come by way of email and internal message, I believe, through the application.
And just to clarify that a little bit, this year we are switching things up a little bit in regards to transcripts. TMDSAS does not use transcripts during processing. We use them afterwards. And so we really wanted to lift the burden of transcripts off of the applicants. They could really focus on getting letters in and getting those test scores applicable. So unless applicants are applying through early decision programs with an expedited deadline, such as JAMP, or early decision programs like I talked about, if they have any foreign coursework, or if they are applying as a fresh start applicant and have enacted that fresh start provision, then you don't have to worry about sending in transcripts. It's great. It's great for you. It's great for us. And there's not a huge rush on getting those in. Once we send you that request via email, we do request that you send those transcripts in within 30 days. That email most likely will not be coming in until later the fall. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure that info at TMDSAS is not on any, it's coming into your main inbox. It's not going to your junk folder because we do send you some emails throughout the year. But yeah, you do not need to send us transcript until we send you that email, unless you fall into any of the programs I just listed.
Thank you. That's a hot button question this year.
Yeah, we love it. We'll talk about it all day. Don't
All right, well, we have a question that was submitted earlier, and it has to do with how the credit, no credit, or satisfactory, non-satisfactory, or pass-fail courses are being processed this year. The first question is, does a credit grade or a credit, no credit course fulfill a prerequisite requirement for spring 2020?
Sure. So per the COVID response, which is listed on the newsroom, the schools are accepting credit and credit courses. However, everyone does need to be aware that those courses, which this is also listed in the newsroom, but those courses will not show up in your PCR. So the PCR is your list of prescribed courses, all those courses that meet the prerequisites, and any course with a pass or a fail that you didn't earn a grade for, unless it's AP credit, those courses will not show up on the PCR, and it will be up to the institution to then change their admissions process to include those hours. So just because it's not showing up in the PCR, you'll just want to go through the college coursework to see how we actually coded it. And that'll really be the biggest thing you're looking for this year in regards to those credit, no credit courses.
Great. And then the follow-up to that, we did want to talk about entering any course that was a live in-person course in the application. and now because of the pandemic has been moved online. When entering those courses, what's the process for that?
Yeah, so any course that began as an in-person course and later was transitioned to online should be entered as a regular course. And there's a special note about that in the handbook on page 26. So just as a reminder, go ahead and enter those as regular in-person courses.
All right. And on the topic of transcripts, we have a follow-up question. Do we need to list audited coursework if not listed on our transcript?
If it is not listed on the transcript, you do not need to enter it in the application.
All right.
And just to add to that, any courses that were for 0 hours do not also need to be included in the application.
And I think this question is prime for Dr. Beck. For volunteering events where I participated in a full day of activities a few times, but not regularly over the past year, would you recommend entering the dates? How would you recommend entering the dates and hours per week?
I don't know, I may have to defer to you, Enrique, on this. It's a, I'm not sure, Enrique.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you've gotten that question several times as an advisor.
Yeah. You can't do it over the span of like a month. You couldn't count that as a month. So you would need to enter it as individual activities. And
yeah,
so
and as we mentioned, you know, that prevents any hour inflation, so that you're not saying that you're involved in an activity for 6 months or 3 hours a week.
Right.
And in reality, you only did 3 weeks of 3 hours. So yeah, that helps you so that you don't overinflate your course. Your activity hours. All right. What about courses over the summer that were moved to online?
So I think it depends on how you signed up for the course. So you originally signed up for a course that was in person and then it was transitioned to online. That's an example of when you would say that it's a regular course. But if you signed up for an online course knowing that it's going to be an online course, then I believe the expectation at this point is that it would be considered an online course.
Yeah. And all right. I think I heard the end of an answer where you said you still send in your application even if you have a low MCAT score and state your anticipated test date on your application. I just wanted to verify that the schools will not filter out applications automatically because of a previously low MCAT score. You should still send in your application in May. That is essentially correct. If there's a pending MCAT score, there are updates that are constantly going between TMDSAS and the participating schools. And Alana and Nicole, I'll defer to you on that. But the schools would have the information. If you submit with a pending MCAT and your previous MCAT, the schools have the information and anticipate that there will be a new MCAT test score coming in. What's likely to happen is that they'll start reviewing your application and then waiting until your new MCAT score comes in, or DAT score, or GRE. Wait until that comes in before making a decision on whether or not to extend the offer for interviews. If Nicole or Alana could talk about the specifics on what those updates look like between TMDSAS and the schools.
Yeah, so I fully agree and support with the advice given there, Enrique. You know, an applicant definitely wants to submit their application when they are ready to. So that's balancing out quite a few things, right? And obviously their standardized test is one important factor. But, you know, submit the application when you feel it is, again, the best representation of you. And understand that as your scores come in, those will be updated, you know, with the schools through TMDSAS. Again, if there are changes to those planned test dates, we can update that very easily. And this isn't a departure from the norm. This has always been the practice where applicants may have an existing MCAT score and they send that when they submit their application. And if there's a pending test score, that gets updated at a later time. And so that's true in this cycle as it has been in previous cycles.
And just to speak more about other updates that are made to the application cycle, that includes your grades and your GPA. So if you indicate that you're taking summer courses, you're taking fall courses, you actually have the ability to log back into the application and enter the grades. This is, we don't need to have an updated transcript from you to update that GPA. You will go ahead and enter those summer grades yourself. The schools want to see what courses are that you're completing. They want to see the grades that you've gotten, and they want to be up to date on that GPA. And so every time that GPA is updated, I sort of say it's like a flag to the school when it's given as an update. It's just, there is an indication that something has changed in your application.
It's like getting a Facebook notification. It's just like, ding, Enrique has a new MCAT score. Ding, here's an updated GPA. Yeah,
but I like
keeps going off. Yeah. All right, well, I think this question might be better addressed by an advisor. Throwing you back in there, Deb. And the question is about evaluations. How should we pursue evaluations right now with COVID-19? It's clearly affecting a lot of different ways. Perhaps people have requested a letter of evaluation from a physician, and now that physician is clearly busy doing some other work and may not be able to write an evaluation for them. So could you offer some advice and some insight on that?
Sure. Yeah, by all means, don't contact a physician who's, working in the ER and trying to save COVID patients. That's bad manners and bad judgment. You can, contact his office, maybe his office manager, and say, I had contacted the doctor earlier in the year, and perhaps there's a letter on file for me. Could you perhaps send that to the office, the TMDSAS, or to your advising office if you have an HPAC that handles letters for you? As for those of you who were going to be shadowing in the summer and weren't able to do that, Enrique and Alana and Nicole, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but an actual letter from a doctor is not required. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. However, for dental applicants, they are coming from a practicing dentist. Right. But for medical applicants, yeah.
And for the vets, those letters are required. So the pre-vets and the pre-dental students are in a little bit more of a difficult position if you didn't have your letter lined up before this hit and you were counting on doing that this summer. You may just have to wait a bit. The application deadline has been extended, so that will be helpful to you. Hopefully the dental offices will be opening back up soon. I know that the vet offices are considered essential services, so you may still be able to do some work with the vet or the vet's office. As for professors, you can try emailing them. Hopefully you ask for those letters before, April of this year, and made arrangements for them to send those in. And if not, it can be a little difficult as well. If you're taking summer classes, and of course they're online, that professor may not know you too well or well enough to write your letter. So hopefully you can get those letters in anyway. But again, go to your advisor and just enlist the help there that they may be able to give you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Let's see. Do you anticipate that interviews will be pushed back or just move to a video format? So let's summon our crystal ball and see what's in the future. There's definitely been some discussion on that.
Yeah, we can say for sure that the match deadline for medical applicants has been extended. So that does give the schools more time in January to interview applicants. But I think until we get a consensus on that in these regular meetings that we're having with the schools and we post those online, we don't have a specific answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes with dental and veterinary schools. They have to adhere to national dates that have been set that they all agree upon. And as those updates keep happening, we'll post them on our COVID-19 response page as well. Okay, well, we have about 15 minutes left. So if you all have any additional questions, this is the time to ask the TMDSAS team here. We have Nicole and Alana, and for Health Education Service, we have our advising coordinator, Dr. Beck, and I'm here as well, I guess. So if you could offer one piece of advice, if there's just one takeaway that people could get from this Q&A, what would it be? And we'll just roundtable this. And I can go ahead and get started to buy y'all some time to think about it.
As long as you don't steal the one that probably both Nicole and I are thinking of.
Okay, then I'll get a. Let's see. So I think the main takeaway here is that this is not a typical year. This is not a typical application cycle. This is a difficult journey for you to begin with to pursue a career as a healthcare professional. These are, it's just like the perfect storm for anxiety, the perfect storm for concern. And we're definitely seeing a lot of that. And I think what I want you all to know is that conversations are happening that want to help all of our applicants. And nobody should feel that they are disadvantaged in this scenario. I know a lot of things have changed. Shadowing hours have been canceled. MCAT tests are being pushed back. DAT scores aren't coming out soon. There's so many things that are moving around, but all of the schools, it's in the best interest for each one of our schools to have an equitable application processing cycle. Just know that each one of the schools is making arrangements to address those inequities that are going on right now. And they have your best interest in mind so that you have a fair shot of getting into the school that you want to apply to. So take a minute to take a quick breath. I know it's been hard. And I know, so many things are changing. But just know that all of the people that we work with have your best interest at heart. And ultimately, we want to get to that same goal. And just know that we're all here to help.
I would say that I won't steal Nicole's, that for one of my takeaways would just be to stay informed and to communicate with us. TMDSAS and TXHES are here to help. After your application is submitted and we're processing it, one of our personal processors will reach out to you and kind of give you a message with what the next step should be. Stay informed and talk to them. Just respond if you have any questions. We are here. We want to help guide you through this process in the best way that we can. If that's if that's sending us questions individually, if that's giving us a call, sending us an email, or if that's, needing help from an advisor and reaching out to TXHES, we're here to help, and just stay informed, reading our website, reading the handbook, and continuing to check those updates in the newsroom.
Yeah, and it feels like a test because I don't know if I'm going to say the one you're thinking of. But I would totally echo, Enrique and Alana here with just the sentiment that we are here to support you, and we understand that this is a somewhat, if not extremely tumultuous time. So we're here specifically with the application and our resources. Again, I would encourage you to utilize the handbook as it is designed to be the official guide to the application. But as Alana mentioned, it goes beyond just completing the application itself. This is a whole process. So there are things you want to take into account as you are getting ready to apply. There are things to remember as you're completing the application. And then once you hit that submit button, just know that the process doesn't end there. So there are things that you need to do to stay on track. And we are here to help you stay on track. So when your applicant liaison reaches out to you with a question or needs some information to help process your application, please be sure to respond to them as soon as possible so that we can get your application processed.
I'm going to go off on a little bit different tack here, I think, and I encourage you to take a second look at your essays, because this is a time that a lot of things have changed. And, early on, your advisor probably told you to be writing your essays even 6, 8, 10 months ago. And a lot of things have changed since then. And perhaps you can look at your reason for going into healthcare, any of the health professions, before the pandemic and after. Now, you can anticipate that especially the med schools will get a lot of information from people about how COVID has affected them, and that's fine. But keep in mind that they'll be reading thousands of essays, and you don't want to sound all alike. You are unique. So they want to know what's unique about you and how that fits into your plans to be a good healthcare provider.
Awesome. Well, of course, now that we took some time to start signing off, we got a flood of questions, which is great. But the way that we're going to tackle these, we're going to be a little bit more rapid fire about them.
Sure.
If anybody wants to hear my rants, we definitely have several episodes of the TMDSAS and now the Inside Health Education podcast. And those are linked at the Texas Health Education Service website, txhes.com. So we invite you to hear some of those. We've got some great episodes that came out with some advisors where we talk about transferable skills. For example, if you had a job at McDonald's, what does that look like? And talking about it in your application. What do those skills look like for a healthcare provider? And John Fierce from Rice University was an amazing guest on that. We also had another guest who's a professional writer talk to us about the hero's journey and talking about your reason for being, your ikigai. And so it's important for you to kind of keep those in mind as you're revising your essays in preparation for the application. So with all that in mind, let's take some rapid fire questions. So first off, with letters of evaluation, has the 1-year date for previously obtained letters been relaxed for this cycle? Sorry.
Can you repeat that? Yeah.
Yeah, with letters of evaluation, has the 1-year date for previously obtained letters been relaxed this cycle?
Short answer, no. Previously, we actually didn't have a specific requirement with the date on the letter. And actually it is new policy that, letters that were used last year are still applicable for this year. However, the schools have said that they want that date updated. So although the letter might be the same, because you still have to request the letter, we will not pull letters from the previous application. The schools did indicate that they wanted the date updated. So that is why we have the deadline, the requirement that the letter must be dated May 1st, 2019 and forward to be accepted for this year. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and just to add my own rapid response to that.
Yes.
If your letter looks exactly the same last year as it does this year, that's a red flag for you. So take some time to talk to your evaluator to make sure that they know what you've done in the past year and for that to be reflected in that letter. Next question. If we are sending out our letters of evaluation through Folio, does our TMDSAS ID have to be on both the actual letter and on Folio?
No, it does not have to be on the actual letter, just has to, we just prefer to have the ID in your account information so we can easily identify who you are and the correct application you put it in.
All right, next question. Once the application opens, is it recommended to go ahead and apply without MCAT scores? We've said that a few times this, and here goes one more. Yes, you can submit without your MCAT scores. You can submit without your DAT scores, and you can submit without your letters of evaluation. You cannot submit until your spring 2020 grades are in. Next question. Are there any major changes for the application structure from last year?
So the structure is the same, but there are a few revised sections. This would be the demographic section, felonies and misdemeanors, research, and of course our new transcript policy. So for any reapplicants out there, be sure to give a thorough look to every section of the application to make sure that your responses are accurate.
All right, next question. Are the essay prompts the same?
The essay prompts are same except for the vet applicants. The first essay it's pretty much the same, it's just a little bit reworded. So you'll just want to make sure that it's your essay still reflects that question.
Mm-hmm. Is an LOR and LO evaluation the same? Yes, a letter of recommendation and a letter of evaluation are exactly the same. We refer to them as letters of evaluation because they should be evaluating how well equipped you are to handle the rigors of professional school. However, a letter of recommendation can be used interchangeably, but our schools prefer letters of evaluation. How are the grades from post-bac programs factored into GPA calculations? That is not a rapid fire question.
Well, but I can talk about it anyway. So TMDSAS breaks down all your GPAs in different ways. So actually new this year, it's not a new calculation, but it's just going to appear differently on the application profile. We actually do have a post-bac section now, so that's really exciting. In regards to how the GPA is calculated, it really depends on what the course is. So we hear post-bac a lot, right? But post-bac courses that are undergraduate level will be included in the undergraduate level GPA. Sometimes there are post-bac courses that are, or post-bac programs that are called post-bac, but really they're master's levels. And those are considered graduate level courses and will not be included in your GPA and are not included in any prerequisite. They're not coded as prerequisite courses. I tried to answer that quickly, so I hope that wasn't confusing.
But they will be included in the graduate GPA. Not
yes.
Do you have an idea of how many different ways the GPAs are split up? Because that's a common question.
GPAs are broken down in about 10,000 different ways. We've got your freshman term, we've got your freshman science, we've got your freshman non-science, we've got your spring term, fall term, summer term, your science undergraduate, your science total, your total GPA, your total undergraduate. There's just like a million ways that we break it down, and then the schools can break it down even further. So a lot of those GPAs are available on your applicant profile or the application status page, but just know that there's even more breakdowns that the schools review when they're doing their holistic review.
Awesome. All right, is June 28th too late to reschedule the MCAT? If that's the closest date that you can get, at which point you'll be prepared to take the MCAT, I think this application cycle, go for it. Typically, I would say, ooh, that's kind of pushing it a little bit, but this year is different. And as I mentioned, the schools are working with applicants to make sure that everyone's equitable. We've seen some of the new test dates from the AAMC go as far as late September, meaning we probably won't even get your grades till your scores until November. So I think a July 28th MCAT would actually be great. All right. So we got another follow-up question. So you can't submit your application until you complete your, no, I already answered that one. So the school will look at undergrad and grad GPA. Yes, there are so many different ways your GPAs are split up. And for the most part, the GPAs are split up in such ways that it allows the schools to track how you're performing year over year. So you have yearly GPAs, you have yearly science GPAs, yearly non-science GPAs, not yearly non-science, or overall GPAs. Is just every which way. And so when the schools say that we want to see an upward trend, it's because they can see when an upward trend is coming in. And they can also see when you came in with, and 120 hours of 4.0 dual credit and you really bombed your undergraduate career. They can see what that looks like. So yeah, they look at your GPA in every which way. How are MCAT scores evaluated? Should the highest score be submitted, or must we submit all scores?
You must submit all scores.
Yep. And with that, we have reached our end of this live stream. We want to thank Alana, Nicole, and Dr. Beck for joining us again. You all, hopefully, those of you all watching have found this to be helpful. I'm going to let you all, each of you, say one thing of encouragement to our applicants. I know it's a scary time, just as a sign off.
All right. Well, I'd like to say, you're doing the right thing here by, tuning in to these opportunities, these moments to get another perspective on the process and get some additional support. So kudos to you. Continue to use our resources. We have a whole host of things available for you on both the TMDSAS and the Texas Health Education Service websites. So please visit those. And as a postscript, remember to print and review your application before you submit it.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope we answered some of your questions. And just remember, this is a strange year for everybody, so we are here to help in the best way that we can.
And I have people saying, should I wait a year to apply? Should I take a gap year? I say apply if you're ready. And keep in mind that if you don't apply, you can't get accepted. So that sounds real obvious, but it's a chance that you take, but go for it.
Yeah, and I'll just say thank you all so much for your engagement. Your questions were really great and insightful, and hopefully you found this panel to be helpful. Again, we're all here to help you. We have several resources available on the Texas Health Education Service website, including episodes of the podcast, the newsroom. We have articles from Apply Magazine there to help you. Also, we have a brand new, fresh out the box TMDSAS website. Make sure that you refresh your browser. There might be a couple of issues with getting your browser to look at it, but take some time to acquaint yourself with the new TMDSAS website. It's a really jam-packed of so many amazing resources and guides for you. And just keep in mind, this is a weird cycle. We are still working from home. And so we ask that you really, when you do reach out, we do welcome you to reach out with any questions that you have, but please make sure that you use all of the resources that we've provided. The handbook is very thorough and methodical in how it walks you through every single question of the application. The website has been rebuilt from the ground up to make sure that everything is as clear as possible. And we understand that there are many scenarios that are unique to a lot of people, and we urge you to engage with your advisors as well to address some of those questions. And if you've exhausted all of those and you still have questions, we're very happy to help. And on that note, thank you all so much for joining us, and have a wonderful Wednesday.
Bye.
Okay.